What's up, guys? Welcome to the Line Change. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the possibility and the chances of the Canucks potentially standing Pat-Rik going into the 2025-26 season. Now, there's obviously a possibility that the Canucks do just sit on not making another move. Obviously, some people think they could still make maybe one, maybe two more moves since the Dakota Joshua trade. And, they obviously have a little over $3 million in cap space, could be potentially $4 million if you shuffle around the roster and go with a 23 out of 25 roster. They could have upwards to $4 million in cap space. Now the big question is, are they going to sit on that? And, going into the season, could they maybe wait to make a move in season, or could they do it just before or right around where training camp is? Could they also maybe just wait until maybe the deadline? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to discuss about that. We're going to go over an article that really talks about that. But before we do that, as we always do, big shout out and thank you to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see there behind me. And you guys can check them out yourselves at GassyJackArt.com. You can also find them on Instagram at Gassy Jack Art. So let's go ahead and dive right into this article from our friends at Canucks Army. This article written by Stefan Roget, and he goes on to say, a famous thinker once said, the only thing I assume that is permanent in life is impermanence. Probably just butchered that. Sounds like Plato or Descartes, right? Well, it was actually Thor from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it still reads well, and it definitely still applies to most situations, including life as a fan of the Vancouver Canucks. GM Patrick Allvin and company of the Canucks made a trade earlier in the week, sending Dakota Joshua to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for a fourth-round pick. It was a transaction aimed almost entirely at freeing up roster and cap space for the 2025-26 season, and it certainly accomplished that goal. Most believe that space is going to be spent in the stretch of time between now and the opening of training camp 2025 in September, and they're probably not wrong to think so. A number of free agents remain on the market, including Jack Roslovic, who the Canucks have been tied to numerous times. There's also always the possibility of closing another summer trade. But the option remains for the Canucks to, quote-unquote, stand pat, Rick. So to speak and to stick with this setup they've got on hand now, at least for the start of the 2025-26 season. In fact, not only is that a possibility, but it's a possibility with some distinct benefits for the team as a whole. Let's once again take a look at the Canucks depth chart post Joshua. We've already talked about this, but for those of you that may have missed that video, you guys will get a glimpse of this. Those of you that could possibly have forgotten about that, it's a little refresher. So we got Jake DeBrusk at $5.5 million, Elias Pettersson at $11.6 million, and Brock Besser at $7.25 million as your first line. You have then Höglander at $3 million, Filipino at $4.44 million, and Evander Kane at $5.13 million as your second line. Your third line, you have Drew O'Connor at $2.5 million, Teddy Bluger at $1.8 million, and then Connor Garland at $4.95 million. And then your fourth line, you have Linus Karlsson at $775,000, Aatu Räty at $775,000. Then you have Kiefer Sherwood at $1.5 million, and then you have Archdeep Baines at $775,000. And then looking at your defense, you have Quinn Hughes at $7.85 million, Philip Hronek at $7.25 million, Marcus Pettersson at $5.5 million, Tyler Myers at $3 million, Elias Pettersson, DPD at $838,000, Tom Wielander at $950,000, and then you have Derek Forbort at $2 million. Then you have Victor Mancini at $870,000. Then you have your goaltenders, Thatcher Demko at $5 million. Then you have Kevin Lankinen at $4.5 million. And if that is indeed the same roster that makes it to September, there's a lot to like about it. This depth chart allows space for the Canucks' most exciting and most accomplished young players to directly compete for and actually earn jobs. With this depth chart, all of Aatu Räty, Linus Karlsson, and Archdeep Baines should make the cut, along with whichever of Tom Wielander and Victor Mancini the team wants to keep up, Obviously, we talked about Tom Wielander in my conversation with Dave Hall, which you guys can check out on the channel. Injuries inevitably happen, sure, and sometimes in the preseason. Were that to occur with the depth chart, all it would mean is someone else like a Max Sasson or Danila Klimovic getting an earlier shot at more NHL ice time than anticipated. Having a roster where the Abbotsford contingent isn't actively blocked by a bunch of new warm bodies is a plus both for those who want to see a competitive camp and for those who wish for those players' championship run to be justly rewarded. Let's take a look at injury call-up space. Speaking of injuries, the depth chart above carries a projected cap of $93 million, or just over $93 million, once Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Ilya Mikheev's $5 million worth of dead cap is added to the total. That leaves the Canucks with some $2.275 million in projected cap space under the $95.5 million ceiling. In our previous article, we wrote about the possibility of using this space to improve the roster. That will probably happen at some point or another in some fashion or another, but for the time being, that extra bit of cap space could prove quite useful when it comes to covering short-term injuries. Remember, NHL teams only get cap relief for long-term injuries, meaning injuries of either 10 games or 24 games in length or more, and that using this relief space comes with some disadvantages like an inability to accrue additional cap. To cover short-term injuries and the call-ups needed to replace them, teams need at least a little extra wiggle room. With more than $2 million in space, the Canucks would be free to call up any two players from Abbotsford at any time, as long as IR placement opens up the roster space without having to worry about demoting anyone to clear cap. That's not a bad option to keep on the table all season long. If a team can manage it over time, that extra space can come from accrual, but early on in the season, it's got to be carved directly out of the books. Let's take a look at some bonus cushion space. There's also something to be said about saving cap space to accommodate various ELC performance bonuses. The Canucks don't have a lot of eligible bonuses around for 24-25. The younger Elias Pettersson is a good bet to hit his full 80K. Wielander famously held out for extra bonuses, and so it stands to reason that he intends to hit close to his maximum 500,000. Mancini has 80,000 of his own. Jonathan Lekaramaki has up to 450,000, and a small handful of others could factor in at various points in the season. If a team winds up not having enough cap space to cover earned bonuses, the cap from those bonuses can be rolled over to the next season, but that's never ideal, and it's always best to cover them in the present moment if possible. As well, there can be some complications in calling someone with bonuses up mid-season. In short, when that happens and the team is using LTIR, the team needs to have enough cap on hand to cover their full array of possible bonuses, or the call-up can't happen. This is all avoided by simply having those players on the opening day roster, thus creating a potential bonus cushion. With lots of cap space on hand, the Canucks can engineer a roster with Wielander and Lekaramaki both on it, even if they don't actually quote-unquote make the team, and thus maintain the largest possible bonus cushion and maintain maximum call-up flexibility throughout the season. Let's take a look at accruing cap space over time. You may have heard that the concept of papering players down to the minors has ended as a result of the new CBA, and it's true. Now, players reassigned to the AHL must play at least one game before returning. That ends the practice of the Canucks constantly reassigning players on off days just to accrue a little extra cap space. Or should we say that ends the practice as of 2026-27? The new CBA doesn't kick in until after the season, so it's back to Abbotsford business as usual for this year. That $2.275 million in current cap space should accrue nicely on its own. The way this works, in short, is that players acquired mid-season already have most of their cap hit off the books, so they're easier to fit under a season-long cap of $95.5 million. To oversimplify it, if a team acquires a $10 million player with a quarter of the season left, they've only got to have $2.5 million of that $95.5 million available. Were the Canucks to sit on that $2.275 million in cap space all season long, it accrued to the point that they'd be able to add more than $10 million in cap space by the trade deadline. That won't actually happen, of course, with injuries, call-ups, and eventual acquisitions getting in the way. Until then, however, the Canucks can both continue to accrue and continue to do this sneaky sort of paper transaction on off days that help them accrue even more. For 25-26, there aren't nearly as many waiver-exempt individuals on hand, but there are the trio of Pedersen, Wielander, and Mancini on the back end. I expect them to make plenty of day trips to Abbotsford for as long as the Canucks remain in the business of accruing cap. Let's talk about keeping room available for in-season trades. This is the big one. It stands to reason that there is not currently a 2C available for a price that the Canucks are willing to pay. If there were, they'd probably have already paid it by now. There are players available, of course. The aforementioned Rozovic has got plenty of tension as a forward who can play center, albeit with limited effectiveness. But it's also true that more players will become available later, and that could include either a better 2C than is available now, or one of the same 2Cs but available at a better price. The 24-25 season saw centers like Lars Eller, Jack Drury, Morgan Frost, JT Miller, Philip Hedl, Mikael Granlund, Trent Frederic, Yanni Gourde, Brock Nelson, Dylan Cousins, Josh Norris, Charlie Coyle, and Logan Stankoven all move via trade. No, those aren't all legitimate 2Cs, maybe some of them, but it's a lot of centers traded all the same and enough to suggest that some more should certainly shake loose in 25-26. Keeping cap space, roster space, and tradable assets on hand for the eventuality of another player becoming available seems like smart business for a team in the Canucks' position, and they're currently set up to do exactly that. They don't rush into another move just for the sake of it in the winning days of summer. Keeping the 26-27 books free and clear. The NHL's cap ceiling jumped more than $7 million this offseason, but the Canucks barely felt that. The increase entirely consumed by raises to the likes of Brock Besser, Marcus Pettersson, Niels Höglander, Drew O'Connor, and most troubling of all, the OEL buyout, all conspiring to take up all that extra space and then some. It would be nice for the Canucks to more fully take advantage of the further $8.5 million coming for the summer of 2026. They'll have a few pending free agents at that point, like Kiefer Sherwood and Evander Kane, but nobody who's going to break the bank. There's Thatcher Demko's raise to consider, but it's manageable. As it stands now, the Canucks are set to have some $20 million or more in cap space under the $104 million projected ceiling of 26-27. It's not a bad thing at all to leave that space open as long as possible, so that the Canucks can have a greater opportunity to explore the myriad ways in which they might use it. So there's that article, a very interesting article from Stefan Roget, talking about, whether or not the Canucks standing pat, Rick, going into 25-26 is a good or a bad thing. He highlights both. And I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think about the Canucks possibly standing pat going into the season, maybe waiting until the season before they make another move, possibly to get that 2C that we've all been waiting for ever since JT Miller was traded away. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. And as always, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. You can find us on social media. You can also interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change to find our Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Van. You can find us on TikTok at The TLC Podcast. You can also find us on Blue Sky at The Line Change. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, once again, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for this video. As always, let's go Canucks, and I'll see you guys next time.